Milk. It's one of the most fragile foods we consume, spoiling faster than almost anything else in the kitchen. But what if I told you that thousands of years ago, people had a way to keep milk fresh without refrigerators, without freezers, and without modern packaging? I didn't believe it either. Honestly, I thought this was one of those exaggerated survival myths, something you'd read in an old text but never actually see work in real life. But curiosity got the way in, and wasn't the only way to work out for help, because tools around the world are worth out. I took fresh milk, the kind that usually turns sour in just a couple of days, and applied an ancient preservation method that people once relied on for survival. If this works, it could mean two things. First, that our ancestors were far more resourceful than we give them credit for. And second, that we might still have something to learn from them today, especially in a world where food security is becoming more fragile. But here's the twist. I didn't know if this would succeed or fail spectacularly. And what happened next completely changed the way I look at milk forever. Milk has always been both a blessing and a curse. It's rich in nutrients, versatile in cooking, and vital for survival in many cultures, but it spoils quickly. In hot climates, it can go bad in less than 24 hours. That's why refrigeration became such a game changer in the modern era. But long before electricity, people had to figure out ways to keep milk drinkable. Ancient civilizations, from Mesopotamia to India, developed techniques to extend its shelf life. Some turned milk into yogurt or kefir, others boiled it down into thickened forms. And then there was one method that fascinated me most: using natural fermentation and storage vessels to slow down spoilage. The claim is simple. If you treat milk in a certain way, by heating it, cooling it, and sealing it inside clay or earthenware, it can last far longer than expected. Some sources even suggest it could stay drinkable for a week or more. Why does this matter today? Because food waste is one of the biggest problems we face. Millions of liters of milk are thrown away every year because they spoil before being consumed. If an ancient trick can extend its life even by a few days, it could save money, reduce waste, and provide resilience in emergencies. But here's the catch. No one really tests these claims anymore. They're written in old texts, passed down in folklore, but rarely put to the test in a modern kitchen. That's why I decided to do it myself. I started with fresh milk, straight from the source, unprocessed, no preservatives. The kind that would normally sour in 2 days. The method I found described in old records was surprisingly simple. Heat the milk gently until it just begins to steam, then cool it quickly, and finally store it in a sealed clay vessel. The idea is that heating kills bacteria, cooling prevents rapid growth, and the clay provides a breathable but protective environment. But I had doubts. Wouldn't clay let in contaminants? Wouldn't the milk just curdle anyway? And what about taste? Would it still be drinkable? I prepared 2 batches, one stored in a modern glass jar and one stored in a clay pot, following the ancient method. I placed both in the same environment. Room temperature, no refrigeration. This was the moment of tension. Every day I checked the milk. I smelled it, tasted it, and watched for signs of spoilage. And with each passing day, the suspense grew. Would the clay pot really make a difference? Or was this just another myth waiting to be busted? Day 1. Both batches looked identical. Fresh, creamy, no sign of change. Day 2, the glass jar milk started to develop a faint sour smell. Not terrible, but noticeable. The clay pot milk? Still surprisingly fresh. Day 3, the glass jar milk was clearly turning. Sour taste, slight separation. The clay pot milk, however, remained drinkable. It had a faint tang, but nothing unpleasant. Day 4, the glass jar milk was undrinkable. Sour, clumpy, unusable. The clay pot milk, still holding on. Day 5, I braced myself. I expected disaster. But when I opened the clay pot, the milk was still smooth, with only a slight change in flavor. It was almost like lightly fermented yogurt, tangy, but safe. I couldn't believe it. The ancient method was working. Here's where things got interesting. By day 6, I expected the clay pot milk to finally give up. But instead, something unexpected happened. The milk didn't spoil in the usual way. It transformed. Instead of turning sour and clumpy, it thickened slightly, becoming more like cultured dairy. It was almost as if the clay vessel had guided the milk into a natural preservation process. This wasn't just about keeping milk fresh, it was about changing its nature. The milk had essentially become a primitive form of yogurt, without me adding any starter culture. That's when I realized our ancestors weren't just preserving milk. They were creating new foods: yogurt, kefir, cheese. All of these probably began as preservation methods. What started as survival turned into culinary tradition. And here I was, watching it happen in real time. So what was the final outcome? The glass jar milk lasted 2 days before spoiling. The clay pot milk lasted 5 full days before turning, and even then, it didn't spoil in the traditional sense. It transformed into something edible. Expectation versus reality. I thought this would be a simple test of longevity, but instead it revealed a deeper truth. Ancient preservation wasn't just about keeping food safe. It was about harnessing natural processes to create something new. The taste was different, yes. By day 5, it had a tangy flavor, almost like buttermilk, but it was safe, drinkable, and even enjoyable. This result was satisfying because it proved 2 things. 1. The ancient method really does extend milk's life. 2. It also shows how necessity gave birth to innovation. Imagine living in a world without refrigeration. You'd need every trick possible to keep food from spoiling. And in that struggle, people discovered fermentation, one of the most powerful preservation tools in history. That's what I experienced here. Not just a test, but a glimpse into the ingenuity of the past. So, does the ancient method work? Yes. It doesn't keep milk fresh forever, but it extends its life by several days and transforms it into something edible, even after that. Who should use it? Anyone interested in food security, survival skills, or simply reducing waste. If you ever find yourself without refrigeration, this trick could be invaluable. But here's the honest truth. It's not perfect. The flavor changes, and it requires clay vessels, which aren't always practical today. Still, the principle remains powerful. In a world where we throw away so much food, maybe it's time to revisit the wisdom of the past. This experiment taught me something important. Survival isn't just about technology. It's about creativity. Our ancestors didn't have refrigerators, but they had resourcefulness. And sometimes that's enough. If you enjoyed this journey into ancient food preservation, stick around, because next time I'm testing something even stranger. A preservation method so unusual, you'll wonder how anyone ever thought of it. Until then, remember, when the system struggles, prepared people don't panic. They adapt. They protect. They preserve. And maybe, just maybe, the answers we need today are hidden in the past.